Al McFarlane. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Today is Thursday, March 26, 2025, and I got a lot to talk about today. One of the things I want to do is first bring on my co-host for today for what I call always robust conversation, and that is Kenya McKnight Ahad. Kenya is here. Kenya, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you? Good
I am
afternoon.
well. I am well. We may be being joined for just a few minutes by our friend who was with us last week, and
Oh,
that's our
okay.
elder, Bill English, to give an
Okay.
update, a report out for a few minutes
Yeah.
on the extremely successful, I think, and useful uh, community meeting held Monday at the Thor Building. Great meeting with the commissioner of Minnesota Housing Finance Agency and with members of her team, also with members from the community who were involved in the years long process of deciding what should happen with the development of the Upper Harbor Terminal development project, a major community building opportunity for our
Yeah.
community, North Minneapolis. So if Bill jumps in here, we'll just bring him in for the few minutes that he's got available. Outside
Yeah.
of that,
I'm
I,
glad that happened. I wasn't able to make it to that meeting, but yeah.
great, great meeting.
Good.
Can you let me first have you join me in welcoming and inviting people to subscribe to the channel? We want to grow our membership, and so I want to
Yeah.
invite people to let your networks know, send a message or a tweet or a Facebook post out to people that you're connected with, and asking them to join us here on the conversation with Al McFarlane. Our objective is conversation, talking about who we are, who we have been, and what we are becoming, talking about the world that we envision, that we can create, that we will create. It's our right and our responsibility. So we do that. And you can go to YouTube uh, /Insight News and join the conversation, be a subscriber, help us grow. We're close to 1,500 subscribers. We'd like to get to 2,000. Our goal is to get to thousands, and we do that one subscriber at a time. We are counting on you to help us make that move. So thank you so much. Kenya, what's going on with you? What's happening in your world, and what's top of mind with you today?
Yeah. So right now I have a team of folks here. We are preparing the center, Zara. So we are giving it a seasonal upgrade where we change the furniture and the functionality and the flow as we prepare for the spring. And the reopening of our clinic. We run a free clinic here, a weekly clinic, and so we so have the practitioners are on site, and we're just working together to upgrade the building,
Mhm.
um, so we can have fun serving people.
Let's give people again a story, Zura 101. Let's talk about the address, phone number, location, contact information so people can connect with this value proposition that you're bringing to market. So let's tell people what it is.
Yeah, so we, are a holistic wellness complex here on the north side, locate of Minneapolis, located on Fremont and West Broadway. And so this building, we provide the Zara. It's something that grew out of it. I would like to call it sort of an evolution out of the work of the Black Women's Wealth Alliance, but also just me and my life. I've actually been a practitioner and healer for a long time. It's been my private work more so that became more public in 2018 starting, but more so really took off in 2020. And in my work with the Black Women's Wealth Alliance, I've come across a wide range of women who work in holistic wellness, whether they're, therapists, whether they're massage therapists, acupuncturists, etc. And in that, they begin to seek our services. And so we created a small incubator initially in the 1200 building when we were tenants. I was a tenant in the building prior to being the owner. And we created an incubator. Me and three other Black women business owners got together to create a co-op, if you will, a wellness co-op. And we all did different wellness services in one of the suites here. And that's how we started. And we began to provide services in our Wealth Academy to our community to introduce them into holistic wellness, from the Himalayan salt, sea salt room, and a variety of other things like herbalism, etc., crystals and stones, to help them understand calligraphy, all sorts of things in our Wealth Academy. And from there, it just kind of grew. And what we also noticed is that folks working in the industry, particularly Black women, didn't have an infrastructure like of a stable space to actually operate out of, and they were not making enough money to, really grow in the industry, such as, just being able to, for instance, folks who work at places like Massage Envy or, Hand and Stone, there's a base salary pay or base pay. So they might get, between 30, $40 per person for a service, and then they depend on tips after that. Whereas though, if you own the business, you're getting the whole fee, right? Which grows their income and their ability to be stable and to take care of things. So we provide space for Black women who are entrepreneurs and need a hand, just a little support to grow and stabilize themselves as, leaders in the industry, but also, their own personal household. So that's, in a nutshell, kind of where and how that started. But then it turned into a whole bigger thing, which we're now a retreat and wellness center. So we can host retreats here for large groups. We provide a variety of services, from herbalism to aqua, which is a bunch of different wet services, exfoliations of skin, ionic foot soaks. We have a Himalayan salt room. We do a variety of things: massage, acupuncture, chiropractor, Dr. Sabi herbalism, floral therapy. I can just throw a lot at you that we do. Cannabis, we're registered to provide hemp CBD products here for wellness as well. So that's what we do here at the Zara, and there's about 12 of us that work on site.
Mm-hmm.
We have a nice team. We host
Mm-hmm.
events, etc. And we also have a cafe called Shantae's Place. So that is our work here at the Zara. And you can check us out at www.zarahus.com.
Is most of this on your website? We could pull your website up and you can kind of walk us through that.
There's
Let's
a
have,
video on there that they can watch
yeah,
that I think shows you just some
Jared.
of the vision and mission on the website for sure.
Sure,
The
Jared.
video.
Can you pull that website up and look for the video, and we can share that, and it'd be cool.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
to, Jared can do it. He'll let me know in a second.
Okay,
And
great.
so, as always, Kenya, I'd love for you and I to talk about why entrepreneurship is important. Why is it important that our people begin to see ourselves not only as consumers? We are probably the best consumers in the world, but how
Yeah.
do we shift our thinking to expand our vision, ourselves as producers as well as connoisseurs of exquisiteness?
Yeah, a good marketplace has options, right?
Mhm.
And so we've got to be good, producers and consumers, right? Because everybody needs consumerism, including owners, So for the folks who invest in, you know, um, residential real estate, they're looking for, tenants, So consumerism is good. It's just that for us, we need to balance it so that we're also producing. And we have a long history of producing as entrepreneurs. So I think it's important because I think for me, entrepreneurship is varied. Ownership, though, of property is for me where you get some core central power at when you start talking about, changing the economic landscape of neighborhoods and
Mhm.
communities and, things like that. But entrepreneurship is important because look, we've got to be able to, you know, you can grow real wealth through entrepreneurship, right? I think it's really a powerful tool for wealth building. And I look at how it has been, part of a pathway for me as well along my wealth building. But it is, just being able to, you know, when I bought my building, I control so much on the corner. I have a corner, me in the public school. So it's, a corner, but I control this corner in terms of I can, determine what's on my property, who's here, how it functions. When I purchased it, it was a spot, right? There were shootouts. I still have bullet holes in the fence. You know what I'm saying? It was a spot. And where cliques met up here because they were getting their hair cut by the same barber. I had the hottest barber in the city, headliners. And there was a variety of different other types of businesses here that just people was congregating here. And that's fine. I was attended here during all of that too. But I didn't know, you have a different view when you own it versus being a tenant, because I wasn't paying attention to as much as I do now as the owner. When I was a tenant, I didn't know that those shootouts had happened. I wasn't privy to some of that. The maintenance of it, the safety for the lighting, the cleaning, like I get to influence so much on this corner. And by shifting also some of my tenants, which, wasn't the idea, but based on the culture that needed to be built and established here, as part of what the ancestors needed and want, but also this community, meant that I had to shift the tenants in the building, some of them. And that changed everything. It changed the whole dynamic of this corner. And so, excuse me. So that I'm saying that to say that it's just an example of some of the power that comes with ownership. And while it's displacement for some of those businesses, like they're not here, it's something deeper for the community. It's health, it's wellness, right? It's peace. There's less shootings. We had, in addition to that, like some of the sidewalks that was cracked up, you think about the people, like I was attending here for near almost 4 years before I became, before I owned it. And now, and those sidewalks been cracked up before I was a tenant. And so, and all while I was one, and I just thought about all the, elders that need to walk there, all the moms with their strollers, all the disabled people, right? All just general people that walk and fall because it's cracked up. And, but as the owner, my job is to make sure in part this is safe. So I was able to get the sidewalks redone, right? It wasn't the city, it's me. And that's part of the power. So I can now provide safety, right? For my community, right? The things that they deserve, we deserve. So that's just some examples of the power of ownership. I can pull the weight of what it means to operate, the cost of operations of this entire building as the owner. I can shift what it costs for people to be here, which and make it affordable for the other businesses that are here while we're all building together. As a owner, I can do that, of the land, because, my job comes down to some of the basic essentials, paying the utilities, the taxes and the mortgage, and for the general maintenance, and of course you need to make money to take care of those expenses. But if I can take care of a lot of them, then that takes the cost away from the smaller businesses and allows them to operate, and to grow, their stability. And so as an owner, you get to make those kind of decisions, and where, you're not going to make a profit right now. It's an investment though, for the long term to help grow, more stability in your community through, yes, the consistency of owning it, but also of the businesses that get to stay and that get to grow and prosper, along the way, which impacts their households, but also the broader community, which includes their children and other people's children. So to me, just a small example of, just property ownership and what it means, or how it can be used, to help benefit a broader community and the power of it. Granted, you can, carry the weight, is, for a little bit to help folks. And that's important. But entrepreneurship allows us to, branch out into markets, which I think is really important. We have a huge leakage in our community, and I'll shift so we can, you
Sure.
know, but a huge leakage meaning we don't keep most of the money we make goes out. We
Hmm.
all know that.
Hmm.
And part of how we retain it and keep it is to also create businesses that will capture some of that money. So that's just kind of how that goes. So I'll just leave it there, Al.
Well, that's a good beginning. I think, Kenya, about my decision to be an entrepreneur. And it started with me being a kid in Kansas City growing up. And my father is an immigrant. He came here, Cuban born, but came here from Jamaica. But his family was a farming family in the Blue Mountains in Jamaica. So they came here as landowners and knowing and having a relationship with the land and working on farms in the Kansas City area. And eventually he and my mom bought a grocery store. So I grew up working in a grocery store from like third grade up through about seventh grade and did everything that you could do to run a grocery store as a kid. What were the lessons? One thing that when I used to go to Jamaica all the time just to visit, my dad and uncles would take us to different towns like Montego Bay or Ocho Rios. And in the countryside, there were stores that Chinese people owned all the commercial places, like kind of like country stores, not convenience stores, but supply stores, supply houses, right? Indians in Jamaica were the civil servants, right? And white people were the managers. This is back in the day. And black people, even in a black country, were relegated to just doing the farm work, the labor work in the city. They were
Yeah.
fortunate if they owned land and could be producers.
Yeah.
But the power structure supported that commercial enterprise that Chinese people did and Indians did in the civil service. One comment that was always made that stuck with me is that when you go into a Chinese store in Jamaica, you would see a 2-year-old sitting on the counter in front of his mom or grandmom or dad or granddad. And as that adult was doing the transaction with you, the consumer, the child was watching and the child was being invited to participate and to understand that his role in the equation was to be on the merchant side of the
Mhm.
counter. And so these children, as they went from 2 years old to 4 years old to 6 years old, will be in a position to sell penny candy, right? And to do the penny chores around the family business. So they grew up acclimated to the
Yeah.
idea of their role as entrepreneurs. And they moved that, and moved with that to create wealth for their community. One thing that then I took from that is that I have the same obligation to make sure that my children, my family, my neighborhood, my neighbors understand that not only are we consumers, and that's a good thing that we have the revenue, but we have to also build wealth and build the capacity to uh, to
Yeah.
build wealth by serving each other. That we are a good market and we should benefit. And you said, Kenya, that there's the leakage, right? Our money goes straight out and it's not circulated in and among our businesses and our families. That's a problem that I think I observed, and one thing that we try to address by being entrepreneurial to be a business ourselves, but also to talk about business in our community. So I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, I grew up. I would say that entrepreneurship to me is um offers a lot of freedom. It's a lot of work.
Hmm.
I mean, it depends on the scale in which you're doing it and the industry, and also kind of, yeah, the scale, like where you go with it, from here to there. I don't know. It really depends. But I think, ultimately it's work.
Hmm.
It's work. And for me, it is generational. When I go back to the census records, as done my ancestry, I look at my um ancestors, and they were entrepreneurs, some of them.
Hmm.
They owned land, and they were entrepreneurs, and I thought, wow, okay, so it's been in my blood. And
Hmm.
when I my great grandmother in Illinois, Memphis. She was an entrepreneur. It's my first interaction with money. Is she was a neighborhood candy store lady, so we sold penny candy out of her store. It was a bunch of us. So we always worked in her store. She made her own cheese or hog head cheese. She made her own ice cream. She made her own, pies, desserts, cobblers, and icy cups. I call them sensational cups. And and then she, had all the candy, and we would help her all the time. And I had a paper route, all sorts of things. I think that this whole, hustle thing, but seeing her do that and knowing that, she really she lived in a place called the Junction, which was like a enclosed gated neighborhood, but also sort of poor, if you will, because it was public housing, but they were decent housing. And when public housing decided to turn the homes over to people to buy, she was the first person to own that house in in the Junction. And that was like before I was born, that was in like the 60s, and I bought her house. I own it to this day, so I'm the fourth generational owner of that home. But I think about legacy. I think about what it meant for her to be an entrepreneur and to hustle and to figure out her pathway to what it means to have a home. Her mother had a home too. Her mother was also an entrepreneur. My great grandmother, and so I just on both sides. And her father, his mother was a loan shark, so she had her own little bank, lending to people. So I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm going, I come from a line of people, on my mother and my father's side who, just was getting it and trying to figure it out. So I'm not surprised that I'm getting it and figuring it out. It's in my blood. But it matters because to me, entrepreneurs are way makers, way makers, people who, are really trying to figure out how to do this work in a unique way that meets the needs of the times we're in. And that's important. That's really important. So I respect entrepreneurship at all levels and the things that we do to create, to provide, yes, for ourselves, but really for others, because it's also a passion thing. It's something that, you're inspired to do. Like it's a service thing. We're in service to people, through the things that we're offering. And so I think it's really important though to never give that up. Now, everybody ain't entrepreneurs. Again, being an entrepreneur, you're leading, you're you're collaborative, all those things, but you need a team, of people. So, everybody can't be an entrepreneur. You need a team of people who believe in you, who's down with your mission and your vision, who can help you get it done, because we can't do it by ourselves. But it's important work. And I think as strategic as we can be around looking at our businesses to some degree, not everybody, but some of us from a market perspective would really, really help us dive deeper into what it means to build wealth. And the market being, whoever your clients and customers are, especially in these times, we're going to really find out a lot more about what we're made of.
Let me push back a little bit, Kenya. You made the statement, not everybody can be an entrepreneur. I know that you're right, but my pushback is this. What if our intention and our plan and our activities, our ordinary, day-to-day activity was activity that accentuated the principles of entrepreneurship? And it's the principle of how to invest time and treasure with an intention of benefit to community and a return that shows profit. What if we were able to act like that? Not that we want to be transactional all the time in everything, but that we want to be aware of the capacity to use transaction knowledge, the ability to share, to exchange, to barter, to buy, to sell, to create, to serve each other in a way that also complements and undergirds the moral underpinning, the cultural underpinning of our community, of our peoplehood. What do you mean, Al McFarlane? I mean that uh, there is a way of knowing and a way of being that we're describing as an African way or Africana way of knowing. It's a way of knowing that does not place exploitation and extraction over the concept of sharing, of collaboration, of cooperative economics. In our culture, the principles of the Nguzo Saba, the principles that we practice during Kwanzaa are life principles, they're moral principles, and they show us how to be with each other in a harmonic fashion that elevates and supports and enriches and enlivens and quickens each of us, right? And that as we each become infused with values that we've articulated in Nguzo Sabo, we also receive the impact of how we interact with each other on a daily basis. So in that context, I'm thinking and believing, Kenya, that we can create a culture of entrepreneurship in our people. What would it be like if the extraterrestrials landed here in North Minneapolis? They popped in on West Broadway and they looked at you and they looked at your cousin, Al McFarlane, and a few people that hang around the both of you, and they made a quick judgment. The judgment would be, these people are entrepreneurs. That's the nature of the people. That's the culture that we have observed. And I think that that's something that's worth aiming. How do we create a public mind, a public identity in us and in the world that reflects and demonstrates our sense of what peace means, our sense of the sanctity of life itself, and our sense of our obligation and duty to nurture each other as we fulfill our commitment to nurture life on the planet. Our sense of leadership. What do you think, Kenya?
I mean, yes. I mean, I think that, ultimately we are entrepreneurs, and I don't know a greater hustler and folks who have, created a way, out of thin air than us, than the foundational Black Americans. I'm going to say that
Mm-hmm.
on this land. And so, absolutely. And I think that, we do have, and we can expand upon a culture of entrepreneurship. I think it's necessary. And I think, though, again, I would add strategy
Mm-hmm.
to align it with, marketplace existing opportunities, but also those that need to be created, as part of how we, earn a living from it too, right? We can't just, because we're also a lot of social entrepreneurs. Social entrepreneurship is great. That's because we care a lot about our community and the conditions that we come from, but also that we see our folks in, for those who are not necessarily coming straight out of the struggle per se. And so I think that, you know, I think that that what's important is that we have a pathway to supporting and giving back to our community. But that's after you've made something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, absolutely we should build on that. What I mean by not everyone, I'm not saying can't be, I said shouldn't. I just think that we got to balance it out, because who's going
Balance is the
to,
key.
we got a whole, a whole nation of chiefs, right?
Uh-huh.
And I mean, you got to have a team and understand that it's what is entrepreneurship, right? And what does it mean to be the owner? I mean, it's really to be the chief leader of service,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, and so it's, so I think it's like getting our minds around what it means to be a leader. And because none of it works without a team.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a leader all day, a top, I'm the owner. Okay, well, you got to have people that's going to help you move your mission.
Right.
And so if everybody's just like, I'm at the top of whatever they see the top is, or that role, because even though I am the chief executive officer of all of my companies, right? Even at this building, if I didn't have people here in a community of people that's helping to make this vision work, it
Mm-hmm.
won't work.
Doesn't
So
mean
being the
anything.
owner is not the whole, I need people.
That's right.
And so keeping that in mind, really, 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 really matters. And so I think I want us to also understand that every role matters. You know what I'm saying? Every role matters. And it's okay to also join a team and help make the dream work, because teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
And so I just want to put that out there. And that's still because we got to make sure the entrepreneurs we do have are successful. Right. So and we need teams and resources and things to be successful. So, and trying to do 5 million people, right, starting it's just entrepreneurs. And no, let's figure this out, how we can support existing entrepreneurs, create entrepreneurship where needed in places, but who's joining the team? Join a team.
I have I don't know if we can pull it up yet. I have a kind of a background piece. It's a video. If we can play it, we'll play part of it. But the title is "The Money Mindset Holding Black America Back," and it's a piece that is on YouTube. 38,000 views so far. It was a piece from 3 weeks ago where John Hope Bryant breaks down why shifting our mindset around money is the key to financial freedom. And he dives into the habits, the beliefs, and strategies that keep Black America stuck and talks about how to break free. So for him, wealth isn't just about money. It's about knowledge, about empowerment, and legacy. And so if we can get that up to show, we'll play a little of that and talk about it. There it is. Go ahead and run that, Jared. Let's listen to a few minutes of it.
Good debt is tied to something that appreciates. Home, businesses, we talk about that. Bad debt is tied to something that depreciates. People are financing jewelry. That is a really bad investment. Financing clothes, anything that depreciates. We have got to understand. So it's a whole machine.
Yeah.
Cars that they got people to refer you to for the cars,
boats,
for the
jets,
jewelry, for the boats, and they're gonna charge you 18% interest, 20. You don't even know what you're signing. This is what drives me nuts. And I'm not gonna mention this guy's name because he just said something really racist recently that and this disgusted me. But you know what I'm talking about. It's an artist, but he's going off about, and I've never said this before, but I'm saying it straight in the camera. He's going off about my Jewish brothers and sisters, about how they ripping them off in the music business. No, brother, you need to read your contract. This ain't the Ku Klux Klan forcing you to do nothing. It's not my fault if some people are good at designing a contract and you're bad at reading it. That's what a lawyer is for. So many of my artist friends are like, oh, I don't want to deal with that business. I want to be on the creative side. It's the music business. It's the business of music. A great negotiation is where everybody leaves the negotiating table slightly annoyed. Because nobody got everything they wanted. But if one person is paying attention to the details and the other person is paying attention to the music, you're gonna get played. By the way, so if there's a table sitting here, forget Jewish, Black, me. Because by the way, Motown did this. There's a bunch of folks who did the same thing. I'm sitting here, you're an artist. My job is to get the most from you while paying the least.
Yes.
Your job is to get the most out of me while giving up the least.
Right.
If I'm a better negotiator than you, or if I'm paying attention to the business and you're paying attention, I don't know, to the girl walking down the hall, or you're just in la la land, I'm gonna clean your clock. Don't come back then later on.
It's already signed.
And now you're upset with me because I negotiated a great deal. That's my job.
Yes.
So I don't know where all this thing, I don't know where people gotten off on this thing about blaming somebody for being excellent at what they do. It's like somebody blaming you for
scoring a touchdown.
Yeah, or in your case, countless.
Yeah.
Well, don't hate on him. Praise him. He's good at what he does. You got people, you got folks going through inner cities right now, white people buying our homes. People are like, oh, that's gentrification. That's not gentrification. Gentrification is, the dictionary definition is a movement to middle-class values. You want that. In order
Let's
for
stop-
that white,
let's
you
stop
just
it
don't like
there.
that the white people are buying out homes that black people.
What you think, Kenya? Interesting. I mean, I think this conversation is critical. I think this is the conversation we have to have around the dinner table and around the country, so that our people are familiar with the challenges, but also the opportunities, and about the work as you described. This is real work. It's hard work.
You know, it is. And what I hear him saying, and I listen to him at times too, is, you know, and I think, yeah, you gotta kind of, you know, balance it a little bit. I get it, of making sure that we understand how the game is played
Mm.
and what the game really is, right? And I understand that, and I think that is true. But I also think that, you know, we don't necessarily want to play their game, and that's the thing. We want to figure out a different game
Mm-hmm.
that works for the way we need it to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the tension to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do understand, and I do think that we have what I would call, to a degree, financial trauma, right? And you know, there are things that we do have to do to overcome those things, because it does impact us. And I think a lot of the financial trauma, you know, yes, it's from experiences genetically, and just kind of how we genetically being things transferred from our ancestors to us. Just like we talk about post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? It's not just the slavery itself. There's also all these other things, the good things and the not so good things that transferred with us too. And I think that this sort of a fear of, you know, not necessarily being successful, but being successful in a way that threatens white people, where they'll come for our properties, they'll burn down our stuff. You know, they steal our land. I mean, we've got so much history of white destruction and violence that has paired itself right alongside Black economic success. You don't have one without the other. It's been our experience from the beginning, right?
So why be surprised with what's coming down the pike?
Well, eventually they beat ownership out of you, right? And just say, well, you know, they're going to take it anyway. So I might as well not put my money in the bank. I'm going to hide it. And now I'm out of the bank system. I don't know how, you know, because the trust factors of like, they're going to steal my money because they've done it. I don't want to own a house because they just going to burn it down. They've done it. I don't want to own a business. So to me, this is why Black entrepreneurship and Black economic success is an act of courage. Black men were lynched because they were entrepreneurs, not because they did something wrong, because they were entrepreneurs. And they certainly were great. They're some of the greatest entrepreneurs we've produced. And I'm not, you know, I'm a dope entrepreneur, but Black men have a particular gift that I really admire in entrepreneurship that shows up when they're really in it. And I can understand the fear that white men may have had from just how genius seamlessly Black men demonstrate, you know, and so as the scientists and leaders they are. And so, but they were lynched for that, you know, not because they were just Black, but because they were Black entrepreneurs, business owners, grocery stores, you know, all these things that took away the customer from the white business. They were dependent on the Black customer, but when the Black man created, his people followed him. And so to me, we have to account for some of that. And I'm not saying it's an excuse. Black people are extremely conservative, in my opinion. We're probably more conservative than some of these Republicans. We have a lot of interesting views about ourselves, and we're extremely accountable. We go hard on ourselves, and we need to be, you know, in some ways, no doubt about it. But we also have to have some more grace and understanding and provide pathways, which he does through his company called Hope. You see that at U.S. banks and stuff. So he's providing a pathway, which.
Yeah. I pulled some other headlines I wanted to share and have you and I react to them. Among them, I'll just say the headlines and get into one or two if we have time. one headline is a story that's local, and it's Governor Walz announcing the increase in Minnesota exports is outpacing growth. And that's a story that comes from the Department of Economic Development and Employment. And then I've got a story that comes out of Wall Street Journal about Trump playing recession roulette with the American economy. Let's look at that for a second. And connected to that from CNN, a story that asks whether Trump's tariff threats are hurting our job prospects. And so, the final one that I pulled out to look at was about Trump signing the controversial election executive order. Critics are calling it a move towards authoritarian rule. Let me look at that first and get your opinions about it. And Jared, you might be able to pull the story up so people can see it as I'm looking at it and reading a part of it to go with. Let's see, I'm going to pull it up on my screen here. Okay, where am I? Just a second. Okay, this is an article that was actually just posted 3 hours ago today. It's an article from the Black Press USA, the Black Press of America, written by our chief correspondent editor, Stacey M. Brown. And the headline for the article is that Trump signs controversial election executive order. The critics call that a blueprint for authoritarian rule. And part of it says that this order calls on states to share their voter rolls with federal agencies, and it threatens to cut off federal funding for states that do not comply. So, Brown writes, and this is writing for Black Press USA, that President Donald Trump has signed a sweeping executive order overhauling the way federal elections are conducted in the United States, prompting widespread alarm from voting rights advocates, Democratic lawmakers, and constitutional experts who say the move is an overt attempt to undermine democracy and centralize power. The executive action requires documentary proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote in federal elections and mandates that all ballots be received by Election Day. It also calls on states to share voter rolls with federal agencies and threatens to cut off federal funding to states that do not comply. The order claims that the country has failed to, quote, enforce basic and necessary election protections, end of quote. So Brown writes that although the Constitution grants broad authority over how elections are run, Trump's directives seek to federalize key aspects of voting access to effectively pressure states into compliance or face financial penalties. And the critics argue that the order is consistent with Trump's long-running strategy of sowing doubt about election integrity. Since losing the 2020 election to Joe Biden, Trump has repeatedly pushed false claims of widespread voter fraud and has attacked various voting methods, especially mail-in ballots, before, during, and after elections. So this isn't your typical MAGA voter suppression. It's a blueprint for authoritarian control. That warning came from Lex Flugarth of Fair Fight Action, one of the organizations at the forefront of protecting voter rights. I'll read one more paragraph. Representative Jasmine Crockett, God bless her, the Democrat for Texas, she reminds me of you, Kenya, a little bit in terms of spirit and fire and fierceness, right? She has voiced strong opposition to this order, highlighting how it could be disproportionately impactful or how it could disproportionately affect everyday Americans. She said, now Trump wants to make it harder to vote if your name doesn't exactly match on every document. That post she made on social media. She said that it hits married folks who changed their names, disaster survivors who lost paperwork, and so many others. This ain't about security, it's suppression. Activist Tom Joseph of Chicago dismissed the move as legally meaningless, suggesting that it was more of a political stunt than a legislative policy change. He said Trump's latest executive order to change the election process is dead on arrival. And he also said he has zero authority over elections. He's trying to distract from the signal intelligence disaster. His executive orders are a window, however, into his fantasy world where he is a king. He can't function in a system with three equal branches of government. I'll stop there because people are saying he controls all three branches, and that puts us in danger. What are your thoughts, Kenya? If any, you know.
Well, I mean, look, I get it.
Before you answer, let me say this.
Yeah.
I don't need you to respond to this because I don't want you to wade into political things that that put us in a position. But I do want us to talk about how do we navigate as principled human beings, as responsible African Americans, as the descendants of the enslaved, and as people that are seeking freedom and wealth for our people. When we have this kind of stuff going on at the highest levels, we can either be mesmerized or distracted or traumatized again or immobilized by all of this, or we can decide to do something different. And the different thing, I think, is to focus on what we can do right here, right now, in our neighborhood, on our block, with the confidence that the same thing is happening around the planet. How do we have that conversation? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, everything in life, everything is everything. It happens, it's what it is. Personally, I mean, I think that, one of the most important things we can do is stop swallowing the liberal pill, right? Stop taking those talking points. Stop taking those analysis. Stop looking at this from a fear base and really, understand that, our power is spiritual. That's who we've been. And let's keep that in front of us. We know that God's always in control. And that everything, has some type of reason, purpose, etc. But most of all, where do we want to be, in the next, 20, 30, 50 years or so, as a nation of people? I mean, we can talk on many layers from the, Black diaspora, from the BIPOC, or from the foundational Black American. I'm a foundational, indigenous Black woman here on this land. And we're 43 million strong, right? Of just one group, not diaspora, foundational Black American, 43 million strong. That's a pretty powerful number. Right? We don't have cliques and tribes. We one group, same ancestors, same people, 43 million strong, this country. Let that number resonate. 43, I mean, it's 42 something, but I just rounded off. 43 million, that's counted, right? That's just us. So that's enough power for us to do a lot. So I think it's about, where do we want to be? What's our future? What they're doing now is tearing down, parts of the legacy that our ancestors built. And yeah, we're affected by a lot of what is happening, but no more than what we've been. It doesn't mean we should care less, because a lot of our people are being hurt, through all of this. I don't know that I have a lot of concerns about everything Trump is doing in terms of his reach in what I would probably call an analysis. He's doing an evaluation, an assessment of the entire system, and making sure that it works the way that it should work, but also tweaking it in a way that I think roots white supremacy. That's what people voted for. White supremacy. This is the advancement. I call this the greatest return of the white man. Okay. And he's doing his job, and that is to, cement white power for a lot longer than, because it was slated to be done with pretty soon, right? With all the projections of this and that. And so he's, that's his job. Do I like it or agree with it? I don't know that I care. I think I'm mostly focused on, understanding what it means for us and all the moves that he's making. He just walked back some things on the civil rights, which was great, about segregating buildings so that we don't have these black-white sections. So great. But some of the stuff he's doing, I'm like, clean it up. Because the other folks weren't as concerned about the impact some of these things was having on us. And the truth is, some of the things that our ancestors established was compromised, through liberalism. And we didn't know until Trump started messing with stuff. We're like, oh, we didn't know they infused. Everybody was benefiting from our legacy more than we were. And so I think for me, I'm focused on where are we? Where do we want to be? Where do we go? And how do we take what we have now? And what are we going to build for the future? Because we've got to expand the legacy. We've been living on theirs for a long time, and we're grateful for what they've provided for us. What are we going to provide for ourselves right now and for the future of Black people in this country that we know other people will benefit from because they've been the whole time? So that is my thought. I think it's about, as the Department of Education is being reshuffled, we're responsible for what education looks like. Let's get the educators together. We need to be organizing ourselves right now. All the educators get together. What does education look like? How are we going to show up? What we going to have? Tutoring camps? We need to have portable schools. What do we need to do? Let the educators figure that part out. What is the future of Black education, right? Quit trying to be Black, brown, purple. Focus on us right now. Let's do that right now first. Then we can talk about how we work with other people. That's my recommendation. Same thing with the entrepreneurs. What's the future of let's get together. All right, where's this headed? Because how do we capture the resources we currently have and others? Yes, we got to connect to other economies, right? It's going to take more than what we have. But how do we start with what we have and make it relevant to our people? Because we can't just throw and be like, I'm Black, come help, come shop with me. No, you got to have some quality, relevant things that I really can use, but that also meets my level of quality. So that matters. So I think let's get together and reformulate a collective vision that is going to be diverse, because none of us are the same. But we've got to be able to have room for 20 things being true at the same time on one plan. And let's go. That's my recommendation.
Another thing I'm looking at is an article in CNN. The article, as I mentioned earlier, is about the tariffs. It says, headline-wise, Trump's tariff threats are hurting your job prospects. It's a piece by Matt Egan at CNN, published today, this morning. And a couple of paragraphs from that, out of New York, it says 1 in 4 businesses has scaled back their hiring plans because of the turmoil unleashed by President Donald Trump's trade war, according to a survey of chief financial officers that was released on Wednesday. The quarterly survey conducted by Duke University and the Federal Reserve Banks of Richmond and Atlanta found a significant drop in CFO economic optimism as they grapple with the fog of the trade war. Almost all of their post-election increase in optimism has faded. The tariff chaos has caused a deer in headlights moment for many firms. Executives don't know how high tariffs will go. They don't know how high tariffs will go, what products will be affected, or how long they'll stay in place. And faced with this deep uncertainty, some businesses are pulling back. About 25% of chief financial officers say they have cut their 2025 hiring plans due to tariffs, according to the survey, which was conducted February 18th through March 7th. And it says 70% said trade policy will have no change to their hiring plans, while only 6% reported an increase. So how does that trickle down to our community, or does it? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, again, it all depends on, so that means that the cost of the goods that we have definitely going to go up, in cost. And even if it don't affect the entrepreneurs, is also a way for people to just kind of price gouge, to claim like, hey, things are going high, even though they may not necessarily be as high as, so just be aware of that, because we've seen that during COVID, where people were just charging $20 for a jug of water. It was just, it was ridiculous. So we're gonna experience some ridiculously price gouges, so go back to just stock up. Okay. Get you stock up. America has a leakage problem also, where America gives this money everywhere, and what he's doing. And even though in the end, I think wealthy people going to win in terms of what his plan is, that's what his intention. We don't know that that's going to happen. But in the process of, he's cleaning up the leakage of America right now. Because we depend on so much cheaper labor outside of this country, but it's come at a cost to this country as well. And he's redirecting that, and it's going to hurt for a little bit until we grow. So this is also a great time to be an entrepreneur, to produce some of these things also, because the very things that we used to buy from China and other places, we need to produce them here so that we can keep the money in the country. As we talk about keeping it in the Black community, we're trying to keep it in America. And in order to do that, we got to create businesses that provide the products that Mexico, China, and all these other places that we were getting. We talk about tomatoes. Oh, we're not going to grow tomatoes, right? So we can solve these problems, but it's going to take a little bit. But that's part of my perspective. It's not the only thing, but that's part of what I think he's doing. And I think it's a good thing, but it definitely does hurt.
Let me pivot to another article, one from Wall Street Journal, an opinion piece headlined, "Trump Plays Recession Roulette with the American Economy." And this author, Alan S. Binder, writing on the 24th, said he thought the probability of a downturn was zero. Now, one is likely, and we may see stagflation. I'll just read a couple of paragraphs for that piece. Is the U.S. economy headed for a recession? President Trump says he doesn't know, and he seems relaxed about it. I don't know either, but I'm not relaxed about it. Economists have never been good at predicting recessions, which are sometimes triggered by surprising events, such as the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy in 2008. I won't go any further than that, but how do we grapple with the question of recession in our community, or do we? Because one could say that we've not ever fully emerged from recession, that we've been operating from emancipation to now on a recession type footing, even though we've made gains. We've done marvelous things as a population in an impossible situation. But how do we pay attention and figure out how to wring some lemonade out of the lemons that are being served right now? What do you think, Kenya?
It is true that we are resilient. It is true that we've been through a lot. It is true that we know how to create a thin air. It's true that, we have deep endurance, and it's true that, we gonna figure this out. What's also true is that, we should not underestimate the impact, because our folks are feeling it, no doubt about it. And we're the barometer for everybody else. So, I think that we should not just say, because I have to correct myself, be like, what we've been through, it does affect us. And just because it may not affect those of us who might have a little bit more cushion and things like that, we got to think about those of us who don't. You know what I'm saying? People are really losing everything they have, their livelihood, their homes, and people really can't buy groceries like that. We think, oh no, it's hard because when you used to go and take $50 and come out with at least 3 bags, you're coming out with a half a bag.
That's
right now today.
That's
and
right.
That's real. And while we have an inflation of several different migrant community members, including here in Minneapolis on the north side, Black people are actually feeling it. They don't talk about it. I don't know that it means it's bad or good. I don't have a perspective on that, but I can tell you when they're in line for the food shelf, right? They're like, there's so many migrants in line ahead of them. When they're going to the health North Point and stuff, they in line waiting a lot. So we're like almost subservice right now, even on the north side to these services, right? Granted the migrant, expansion, which isn't as big as it is in other cities, but it's present. And that has an impact on people's access to resources too. So I just want to, and with the government cutting all these things, it ain't, where's it going to come from? So we had less already. We have even less. And I'm not trying to send a message of they're the problem, the migrant community. That's not my point. It's just a reality that we have to think about how sharing resources in this space looks for us. You know, that it reduces what we already have access to for those who can't, who are already on the cusp or already under the cusp. Let me say that. But those of us who are on the cusp or near it, you know, we're having to accommodate for our parents a lot more, our family members and our communities and things like that. And so I think this is a time for entrepreneurs and also other service leaders and organizations and things like that, our churches right now too. We're going to have to go back to our older ways where we haven't really left them, but we're going to have to step it up more, I think, where, you know, we become, I mean, I have a holistic wellness center, but I might need to be, you know, a food shelf at times, right? I might need to be a school on some days, right? You know what I'm saying? I might need to be a training facility. So is how we going to use these resources to service our people? So yeah, we've got to think about the recession and the impact, but also for those of us who own land, property, and leading institutions, we got to think about how we might need to restructure what we have to best meet the needs of the times we're in, to make sure our folks got what they need and not just be set in, well, this is a wellness center. It might become the hospital. So, I mean, you know, you got to be thinking about what, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I think it will help us to keep those kind of thoughts in mind about how we might need to pivot to become the resources needed for our people, because we might not be getting that grant. We can't depend on, we got to figure this out.
Kenya, that's the mic drop. We'll leave it right there. As always, what a wonderful conversation. So good to be with you in this conversation. Let's keep it going. I'll see you next week.
All right.
All right. Take care. We'll see you.